Hello Year 7, I hope you're okay. Today we are going to do another little bit of proper practical work. Now, the last bit of practical work that we did, which was making those quiz boards, I had lots of messages saying how much you enjoyed doing things like that at home, so I thought we would have a go at doing something else. Now, we're kind of done with the electricity bit of this topic, so we've learnt about series circuits, we've learnt about parallel circuits, we've learnt about current, we've learnt about potential difference, we've learnt how to calculate resistance. We're now going to move on to the magnetism bit of this topic. Now, magnets is something that you will have learnt about back in year 5. And you know all about the North and the South Pole, you know about attraction, you know about repulsion, all things that I'm sure you remember. Okay, now what we are going to do, however, is we are going to start to explore a little bit about how electricity and magnetism are kind of joined together. There's a close relationship between the two things. What we are going to do is we are actually going to make ourselves a magnet using a battery, using something like a bolt or a large nail. You're going to need some wire and possibly some tape as well. Now, I appreciate that some of you might not have these things available at home, so really this is kind of some bonus work for you to do. If you don't have these things and you can't do this at home, don't worry. This is just like a little bonus bit of practical work. Myself and Mrs. V, we never throw anything away, which is why we have to have 3 sheds and a garage, all full of stuff that we've never thrown away. I found a bag in my garage full of old wire, which is where I've got this from. The other thing, before we move on, I show you how to turn these things into a magnet, is please remember safety first. Do not plug anything that you make into the mains electricity. Also, please remember, don't go ripping apart things at home just to get hold of the wire or the battery or anything else. Check at home first. The only other thing that you might want to use for this, which I find is quite useful, is there are lots of free apps available that will detect magnetic fields. I will include on the Edmodo post and in the information for this on YouTube details of an app that I got from the Google Play Store. Sorry if you've got an Apple phone, I don't know which Apple apps are available. I don't use Apple, I've only got Android. Anyway, go away, see if you can find those bits and pieces. Now, before I show you how to make your electromagnet, I thought I would show you this app that I've downloaded on my phone. There are lots of free apps available to measure magnetic field. This one's called the magnetic sensor. And the important bit is this figure here, this absolute field strength. Now, I'm not entirely sure what units they are using to measure the magnetic field around my phone. One of the units that you can use, which is quite cool, is called the Tesla, named after Nikola Tesla, who was a really important scientist. And here's my magnet, here's my permanent magnet, and if you look at this number, you'll notice that as I bring my permanent magnet close to my phone, you'll notice that that number increases. The number goes up. If I take it away, the number goes down. If I bring it close, you'll notice that the number goes up. But why, however, is there any number there at all? Well, as I'm sure you are aware, the Earth has its own magnetic field, and what my phone is doing is actually detecting the Earth's magnetic field. Now, what I'm going to do next is I've got myself my piece of wire, okay, and my piece of wire it's just hanging around the top of my phone there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect either end of my wire to a battery. Now, you do have to be a little bit careful when doing this. I'm using a 9-volt battery, which is perhaps a little bit too powerful because the wire can get quite hot, so please be careful. But watch what happens to the number when I connect either end. If I can get that on there so I can show you. Look, what happens when I attach either end to my 9 volt battery. Look what happens to the magnetic field strength. It also goes up. Okay, so you'll notice that just with a piece of wire, when we pass electricity through a piece of wire, we are producing a magnetic field. However, that magnetic field actually is quite small. Okay, what we've got to try and think about is what could we do with this wire to make that magnetic field stronger? And that's what I'm going to show you next. Okay, we've seen then that just passing electricity through a thin piece of wire will produce a magnetic field. However, the magnetic field is not very strong. So what we've got to try and do is we've got to try and amplify, make that magnetic field bigger. To do that, what I'm going to do, I've got my piece of wire. Now what I've done is I've made sure that I've stripped the plastic coating off both ends. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm then going to wrap the wire around this old bolt that I found in one of my sheds. Now, it doesn't really matter what you use for your core of your electromagnet. Just make sure that it is a magnetic material. So a piece of wood or a pencil's not going to work. It has to be something that is magnetic. So iron, steel. I suppose you could use nickel, though where you would find a nickel bolt from, I'm not entirely sure. Okay, so I'm going to wrap that all the way round. Okay, now the only trouble is, if I let go of this, it's all going to spring off the end. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take myself some tape, and I'm just going to tape that wire to my bolt at both ends. That end out like that. And like that. Okay, so there we go. There's my bolt. Okay, now wrapped in wire. Now just to prove to you, it's not magnetic at the moment. Here I've got some screws. Okay, and if I touch, look, you'll notice that it won't pick those screws up at all. Okay, if let me just find the other end of my bit of wire. My bit of wire is a little bit long. And if I take my magnet, okay. What I do, if I hold either end on my magnet, you'll now notice, look, I've made myself an electromagnet, and if I break the circuit, it stops being a magnet again. Ooh, there we go. And if I take my magnetic sensor app on my phone, okay, I'm just going to lower that so that you can see it. You can see the number. Like that. There's my electromagnet. It's reading about 80 at the moment. If I complete the circuit, you'll notice the number shoots straight up. If we compare that to what it was when it was just a single piece of wire, you'll notice it's much, much bigger. So we've actually made ourselves a magnet that we can switch on and off, known as an electromagnet, sometimes called a solenoid. And there are lots of uses for electromagnets. What uses can you think of? So there we go. We've made ourselves a magnet from wire, from a piece of metal, an old bolt, and a battery. However, it is all a bit of a mess. So my next challenge to you is, can you improve upon this design? Could you perhaps incorporate a switch into the circuitry for your electromagnet? The other thing I would like you to consider is, could you make this electromagnet stronger without having to use a more powerful magnet? As I said, the one problem we do have, especially if you're using a 9-volt battery, is it can get a little bit hot, and please be careful, don't burn yourself as it shorts out. My battery here, I can feel, is already getting quite warm. So could you make your electromagnet stronger without having to use a more powerful magnet, more powerful battery? I'm going to go away, I'm going to see if I can improve upon my design, okay? And I'll make you another little video to show you what I've come up with. I would love to see the sorts of things that you come up with as well. Remember, if you don't have access to these bits and pieces at home, don't worry, this is just a bonus little bit of practical work that I thought that you might quite enjoy. Anyway, hope you're all well, and I'll see you again soon.